This is the Knafeh Queen, and you're listening to the...
Love bloopers. It's okay.
Coffee with Karim podcast, right? And you should give him a chance. And I just couldn't believe it. And I remember my heart was racing.
Welcome to another episode of Coffee with Karim. I am your host, Karim Sirajuddin. Sorry, what's your full name? Fatima?
Fatima Muhammad.
Fatima Muhammad. I have with me today Sister Fatima Muhammad, a.k.a. the Knafeh Queen. Welcome, Fatima.
Thank you for having me.
So first question I have for you is Knafeh Queen. What a great name. What a great title. Now, this is a business that you started. How did you come up with this idea?
So it actually, you're probably thinking I had like this 20-year plan or 5-year plan. It actually happened so organically. I actually have been making Knafeh since I was 7 years old, or we call it Knafeh. But people would always call me the Knafeh Queen when they would try my Knafeh, and that's actually how the name came about.
Wow.
We had totally different names for the business once we realized, okay, this is going to be a thing, which was last May when it became official. And we had different business names. One of them, my husband, I think he was serious, but he was like, how about Afrostinian Knafeh?
Afrostinian.
Because my daughter and me, it was going to be a, combined, she's my business partner. And I'm like, no, this is not. And then, subhanAllah, every time someone had my Knafeh, without a doubt, they would call me the Knafeh Queen. And it just grew on me. I'm like, you know what? So my daughter was like, well, make sure you put the S, Knafeh Queen, so people know it's like two people.
That's hilarious, mashallah.
So yeah, that's how the name, it was just more actually my supporters calling me Knafeh Queen, and it just became natural.
Yeah, it was one of those cases where the name chose you. Yeah, you didn't have to choose the name.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was Allah was making it very clear. Here's your brand,
And subhanAllah, it's like I love it. I couldn't have. I love it so much. So.
MashaAllah. And what challenges have you faced being an entrepreneur, Muslima, hijabi, in the United States? Any interesting challenges or?
I've been faced with challenges, but it's always, for me, I love to take on challenges, especially if it's racist comments. And I'll never forget one of the pie contests I entered. I was in line and there was a white gentleman that was like, oh, who dropped you off? And I was like,
excuse me?
Are you talking to me? Because I actually dropped off my husband and then came, even though that didn't happen. But, where I had some guy at Target line tell me, without hearing me speak a word of English, he told me, you should go back to your country and then come back and learn English. And I looked back, I'm like, are you talking to this girl who has a Harvard degree? And I don't have a Harvard degree, but it shut him up real quick.
Yeah.
So for me, I always just try to remember that it always comes from a place of ignorance, and I need to always remain patient in these instances. Because, I could easily be like, start cussing them out, but what is that going to do? I always hope that with the way I react, they take away something from that and say, wow, Muslims aren't violent, or they're not, and they're actually smart. And that's, and that gentleman actually, that the pie contest, he came up to me. I ended up getting first place.
Congrats, mashallah.
And he came up to me and he felt really he was so embarrassed.
Ashamed, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, can I try your pie?
This was your pie was made of the Knafeh? You did that? Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
What was the filling?
The filling was cheese, and the judges said when they first looked at it, they were just like, they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know if it was coconut or if it was noodles. And they were like, what is this stuff? And then they said the second they took a bite, they were like, oh my God, this is just not an average dessert. This is like so amazing.
It's an ancient dessert.
And it was like 8 to 10 judges, and they're all like in the culinary field, and they're, people with like restaurants and dessert places. So it was really exciting for me to get, when they called my name, they couldn't say it. They're like, fa, fa, fa. And I was like, oh my God. I was actually got my camera ready to record, because I was just like, okay, I'm just going to enter just for the fun of it. So when they called my name, I was like, oh my God, I know my dessert is good, but I didn't think, because it was mostly Caucasian. I think I was the only non-white contestant. Wow. But it was really fun. So yeah, those are some of the challenges that people don't expect a hijabi Muslima to have business skills, or to be able to, run a business. So I like to surprise people. Right.
And I want to come in. Paula here, Karim's wife.
Oh, hello, Paula.
Hey.
Because I follow you on social media always, and I saw that yesterday, I think you were in a Muslim women convention, or you host catering for them.
I was invited to be on a panel with Muslim women professional. Or hold on, are you talking about PFH convention?
No, that was 2 weeks the Muslim Women Professionals.
Yeah, they invited me to be on a panel. It was about 2 weeks ago. Wonderful organization. It's about women empowerment. And yeah, I shared my story of how I started, and people were shocked, because I think they thought I had like this very, fancy business plan. And I'm like, you guys know, I just had an idea. I made dua, because I knew I loved to make Knafeh, and I love bringing people together through food, through like really good food. So, my daughter started making it, and she would like spend so much money on ingredients, and I remember telling her, Rihanna, you need to calm down with making it for your friends all the time. And she was like, well, why don't we just make
a business?
Like sell it to everyone loves it. And I kind of like put it to the side, and subhanAllah, I remember I went to, I was in labor with my last son. And I just made dua that day, because I kind of like to do a little bit of everything. I'm actually a psychology major.
Nice.
But that day, I was like, please, Allah, guide me in what you think is best for me. And subhanAllah, it was amazing, because right after I had him, I kept getting signs of like, this business needs to happen. Like, I couldn't run away from it. It was just kept coming to me. And I remember one of my friends telling me, oh, do you know how to make Knafeh? I'm like really obsessed with this. She had just moved here from Chicago, and she's like had said she tried Knafeh from like so many countries, and she was really picky. When she tried mine, her eyes, like I'll never forget her reaction. She's like, girl, like you don't understand, like you need to have this in every freezer. And so that was like, for me, like, oh my God, it was exciting. And then all my aunts who were like super picky always ate seconds of it, who never complimented like
those types of aunts.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And then one of my friends, I'll never forget, she ordered for her daughter's hakika. And that day, everyone was like, who made this Knafeh? Like, it was Knafeh queen. Yeah. and at that time, I wasn't the Knafeh queen yet. It was just my friend was like, oh, can I order it? And I think that's when, subhanAllah, and then another good friend was like, oh, hey, Fatima, can you make me 12 cupcakes? And I'm like, well, it's not a business, but I'll make it for you. And she came and she left money on my counter. She's like, yes, it is a business.
Wow.
And it just...
Things just went through naturally.
Like, I'm telling you, like, make dua and subhanAllah, accept the signs, because the signs just kept... It was
coming,
it just
validation
kept coming.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And you didn't need Jibreel to come down and give you a note.
No.
It's like you just pay attention to what unfolds in your day-to-day life.
Exactly.
And that's how Allah often communicates, right?
SubhanAllah.
And you have 4 kids, right?
I have 4 kids.
The oldest one's the one who help you?
My oldest and the other, they all help in their own different ways. Like my younger one loves being involved in like the shipping process, so he'll put the stickers on for me. My older one is like pretty much in charge of the dough. She's like amazing with...
How old is she?
She's 12.
Awesome.
Yeah, she started making it around 9 or 10. Like she started making it like really good. You know, before that she would kind of like, you know, play around with it, like help me with the dough and, you know, assemble it. But at 9 or 10 is when she like by herself without me being there. She actually got grounded the first time she made it. And then I tried it when we sent her to her room, and I was like, me and my husband were like, let's try this. And it ended up being amazing. And I was like, oh my God. I was so excited. But
you not only have a business here, you have a chef too to help you.
Yes, alhamdulillah. She's truly my right-hand girl. And she's also learned so much business skills.
That's
just
great.
without taking any business classes, you know, just, you know, communicating with the different, you know, customers, and just going with me to the different conventions that we, you know, usually cater to, or just, you know, we've catered to the mayor, we've catered to Congress people, and just for her to be able to have those interactions.
Just to let the audience know, which area are you catering to the mayor in? Can you tell us?
So the mayor of Rancho Cucamonga,
nice.
Mayor Dennis Michael, he is hooked, you guys. He's so hooked, and I love it. In fact, the last time we went to his office was like a week ago. We've been to his office like numerous times, but the very last time, it was the most special because my mom and my sister came with me, and he got to meet the whole family. And he read my slogan, which my slogan is like really the most special part, because for me, I knew like, okay, if I'm really going to do this business, once it all started being real, I wanted to have a purpose. You know, I'm like, we can't have a business without having like a purpose of why we have it. So I'll never forget, he grabbed my sticker, and that's why I have it next to me, and he was just like, to all his, you know, staff members, you know, the people that work in the office, he was like, serving royal happiness and unity with every bite. And I just like, I had like a really teary moment. I was just like, oh my God, it's amazing for him to be able to read a Muslim woman, you know, and have my mom who taught me the Knafeh, you know, and it just, I don't know, it was just like a very emotional moment. Alhamdulillah. So
you mentioned your sister, so I just got curious. One of your sisters, I don't know if you have more, she's a personal trainer, right?
Kifa, she is Get Fit with Kifa.
Yes.
Like everyone says those words in our family.
And how it works, in one hand you have one make awesome kanafas, in the other hand you have the other one
pretty much. So people joke in our family, they say get fat with Fatima and get fit with Kifa.
So it works. Like you go Fatima first and then you go Kifa,
pretty
right?
much. You get fat with me. Actually, we just got the results in for per cupcake. Our cupcakes are only 175 calories. And
not bad.
The mini ones, Kifa is like, she's like, okay, you can have these at my classes.
Good to know. I want to feel guilty.
They're less than 100 calories, so they're actually Get Fit with Kifa.
It can be your sweet, like no guilt sweet spot.
Yeah.
You guys should like combine your service products like together, like one website. It's like when you buy 12 cupcakes, get 3 workout sessions, because you're gonna have to burn it off, because you'll definitely eat all of these.
Because
right?
you don't make just one.
Right.
75 calories.
And that's why you can't just have one workout session.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, when I went to pick it up on some kanafas for us, I couldn't wait. I just like in the car, I found a spoon and I just like, let me start in here. And Mikkel on the back. That's why your car was so dirty, because just eating around.
Yeah.
And now he knows why his car was dirty.
Yeah.
No, alhamdulillah, it's exciting because she also helps. A lot of people don't see her in the upfront and but she's a huge help for my business, and a lot of the events she's in the forefront. She's like, you know, so we're all in it together. And
is all your family here in the Rancho area?
Yeah, we have over 150 family members just in Rancho.
Wow.
So at any given time, you will run into like at least 5 family members. Wow. And I can't be in my PJs at the grocery.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes I'm like, I just want to go in my like workout clothes or in my like PJs. Nope, because somebody will run into you.
Awesome.
But it's fun. Alhamdulillah, I love being a part of a huge family. You know, and it's sharing this journey with all of them. And, you know, I am, because of my family, you know, it's subhanAllah. And I've learned, in fact, all my uncles and I have aunts who are in the business are entrepreneurs. Actually, majority of my family are entrepreneurs.
Oh,
so I think that's where it naturally was, me not having a business degree. It was just so natural for me. I would always go on business trips with my dad. And so subhanAllah, I tell women all the time that are afraid to start a business, I'm like, you do not need a business degree. Like, all you need is some hustle, passion, and, you know.
And you can self-learn a lot, too.
A lot. You can
But you just have to have the
anything.
passion, the dedication, right? I
Definitely.
mean, it's just practice. Like, just like you were saying, your daughter interacting with customers and this and that. Over time, you keep refining your skills. You're like, oh, that was a mistake. Or, oh, we got to make this aspect tighter of our business or our delivery. And then you just refine over time. I'm still learning.
Business is perfect. If you're waiting for that perfect moment to start your business, it's never going to happen. You just have to start.
Right.
And everything unfolds, subhanAllah. And, you know, the more hard work, the more persistent, the more you see out of it. So, you know, people are like, man, you're a hustler. I'm like,
and you run everything with the 4 kids, too.
Yeah,
so
I do. But, you know, when you wake up and you know what your purpose in the business is.
Yeah, you're doing what you love. You don't feel like you work.
No,
you feel like you're giving
work.
your gift and getting paid for it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Fatima, tell us more about you have a large family. Now, where's your family originally from? And I'd love to learn more about your marriage, because one of the things that my wife and I found so intriguing about your Instagram page is sometimes people will kind of get at you because you did something very unconventional as far as marriage. And some of the comments are really brutal, to say the least.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that situation and the facts, so the audience knows what your background is and why your marriage is very unique.
So I am Palestinian. Both parents are Palestinian, and we come from a smaller city, and we live in the outskirts of Ramallah. So very, you know, I always thought I was going to marry a cousin. So our families, you know, they're open-minded, but it's because they came from a small town in Palestine, and, you know, with all the what's happening in Palestine, I think they wanted to just keep everyone, you know, close-knit, you know, so it wasn't always out of a bad place that they didn't want anybody who was like outside of there, but and subhanAllah, that's all they knew, and you're comfortable with what you know, right? So
can I ask you something on that? Because this is definitely something I've observed. And do you feel like, you know, similar to the Jewish community with the Holocaust, they had a collective trauma. And then, interestingly, you know, a similar trauma is happening to the Palestinians, a collective trauma. And so that gives Palestinians perhaps a sense of, you know, their identity, their culture, their land, everything is threatened. Do you think that is often the response of Palestinians of we have to keep marrying only Palestinians and this is how we're going to somehow get Palestine back or preserve our identity or culture. Like, what do you think is going on there? Like, every time I try to help a Palestinian and a non-Palestinian in premarital counseling, it's always a very rough and usually does not pan out, as far as marriage. So that's the other reason why I find your story intriguing.
For my opinion, I'm definitely sure that does play a role in it, trying to preserve the culture. And but the beauty, and subhanAllah, for instance, my husband, and that's when you realize when you get to, in the Quran it says, to get to know one another from different tribes. And the beauty of that is that person that's from a different culture, a different background, such as my husband, who is African American, he loves Dabka more than any other Palestinian. A lot of times we have that fear, but subhanAllah, I feel like that fear holds us back from doing so many amazing things. And once, for instance, for my parents, people are probably wondering how my parents reacted. My parents were not the traditional, they didn't play that traditional, like, no, you're going to just marry your cousin. At the time, 2 of my cousins were asking for me.
Really?
So in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to marry one of those cousins because that's all I saw in my family. A lot of my cousins married cousins, and it was considered royalty. Like, to marry outside of the family, it's like you're desperate. So they're like, when my husband asked for me, Dawood, they were just like, you're not desperate. And I'm like, no, but he's an amazing guy. He has the qualities that I'm looking for. Those other guys, they're good guys. I love my cousins, but they're not what I look for in a marriage, And so yeah, when my husband called my dad, I literally freaked out. I was like, oh my God, how did he get my dad's number? And I was good friends with his sister. He had gotten it from his sister. And I just heard my dad talking, and like I was waiting for my dad to go off on him, because even though my dad always had different races in our house, but you don't know how they're going to react when it's their own daughter.
Family, yeah.
So I was like scared. I just didn't know. It could have went either way. So I'm like waiting and waiting. He hung up and he came up to me. He's like, oh, this gentleman just called and he's interested in you for marriage. And I'm like, my dad must not know like his background, his ethnicity.
Oh.
And no, my dad knew. And he was like, I honestly do prefer an Arab guy just because it's like
it's easier, it's more
familiar. But he goes, this guy, I have no reasons to say no to him because
MashaAllah.
He seems like a really nice person and you should give him a chance. And I
MashaAllah.
Literally, I just couldn't believe it. And I remember my heart was racing because
so refreshing.
That is so refreshing.
Yeah.
God bless your parents.
Yes.
God bless your parents.
And at that moment, I was like, wow, like, you always think you have the best parents, but at that moment, I was like, my dad is, at that point, my mom hadn't known. She was either out of town or downstairs, but somehow we kept it a secret from my mom, and she was not happy. I'll share that a little later, but yeah, my dad was like, who would I be if I tell you not to give this guy a chance? Because your whole life I've been teaching you about how Islam, is and how it's accepting of all.
It's universal.
It's
not tribal.
And accepting. Yeah. So I cannot tell, go against us.
Alhamdulillah.
So I was just like, I remember giving him a big hug, and I just couldn't believe. I literally, I think it took me a whole day to process what had just happened. And yeah, so my dad started the interrogation process. That he was like, even though I'm accepting of you getting to know him,
right,
I want you to make sure he's like, we have to do like more research on this guy, make sure he comes from a good family, and and so my dad called. The first place my dad called was the local masjid. My husband was playing football at the time in Missouri, so he called the masjid in Warrensburg, and I was like so nervous. I was like, man, this is like pretty much the break, it's
make or break
it, yeah. So the imam was like, my dad was like, yeah, I'm calling about a brother named Dawood, because my dad asked for all the numbers. He told Dawood, give me the number of your coach, the number for your imam, the number, so I'll never forget the imam was like, if this was my daughter, I would give with my eyes closed. And
Subhanallah.
And the imam was Palestinian, so it was like...
Great validation.
Yeah, it was great validation. So that was like a huge, it gave my dad like a, a sense of relief just to know, okay, like so far. And subhanAllah, from all the questions, I did my set of questions for him, and he always had... And I knew his family from before, so I knew he was a good person, but I just didn't know after, because he had converted to Islam. It had been, I think, 2 or 3 years at that point. So I just didn't know, was he really like...
Not only not know Arabic, but also a convert, so even better.
Yes, exactly. So I just didn't know, is he like real? Is he just saying he's a Muslim because he wants to get to know, to marry me? Or, but subhanAllah, from all the questions I asked, I knew it was because he answered stuff that, you can't fake all these answers. Like, he knew, he had so much knowledge and thirst for the deen, and it was just like, if anything, I was like, wow, like I was so...
You could tell it was coming from his heart,
for
perhaps,
sure,
Yeah.
100%.
It wasn't like textbook copy and paste, dry answers. It was like you could tell he internalized and loved Allah and His Messenger.
Totally. And I'll never forget when he came to meet my parents. He flew out here. My brother, this was the scariest. I think my brother was like, this was another, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a break, make it or break it moment. My brother was like, Dawood, can you lead prayer? And I was like, it was Maghrib time, and I don't think I had any khushu' during the whole prayer. I was like just shaking, and I was like, oh my God, what if he messes up? Or what if he doesn't know how to pray? And he was like, yeah, I'll lead prayer. And I was like, oh gosh, like I would just rather you say you don't know how to pray that good rather than, but he was like, no, he was confident, and he like led prayer with no mistake, and like it was just another like, wow, like I'm so alhamdulillah. It was like, it just, things kept going smooth, subhanallah. Now my extended family wasn't happy.
I was gonna ask what happened with your dad. Probably has brothers and sisters.
Oh,
now
huge family.
is he the only one from the family that thinks like this? And what happened? So when they were unhappy, how did they approach
they're all
this?
very accepting with other races, but I think when it comes to their own like family members, they weren't ready for that. It was so new to them. It wasn't familiar to them. They don't know the guy. They're used to like, guys, when they asked for me, they went through all my uncles. Like one of my uncles, he was like, I know every guy that asked for you. I don't know this guy. So he was like really upset. He's like, you're going to bring in a guy to the family that none of us know. So it all came from a place of like love, and just, they really thought that I was going to get lost if I married to this guy, and subhanAllah. And I knew, like my dad, this is another thing my dad told me, and I was like, wow, like it meant so much to me. My dad told me, I was like, Baba, like, why are you so convinced, like, about this, even though everyone's against it? He goes, because Baba, I know you're the type that wouldn't take on this guy if you knew he wasn't a good guy.
He trusted you.
He trusted you.
Me,
yeah.
subhanAllah, and it was like a really special moment, like a special bond,
A lot of Muslims I've heard, from the work I do, this is another powerful point, is sometimes parents don't really respect or value their children, no matter what age they are, right? And it's like, subhanAllah, you raised me, inta rabbitni. Right? Yeah. So why wouldn't I have a decent head on my shoulders to know who I'm going to marry, who I'm not going to marry, if, mom and dad, alhamdulillah, they did their best to do the job right. So that's always interesting, because I speak to young people right now who are out of college, working, ready to get married, and parents are just like, no, it's not time, or you have to wait, or no, not this person, not that person, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're doing. And it's like very selective. You're responsible and you have to be an adult when it comes to financial, academic stuff. But then when it comes to other choices that, humans need to be able to participate in, like who you're going to marry and where you're going to live and what you're going to do with your life, that's not always considered valuable or weighted because it's still coming from the child, not mom and dad.
Definitely.
This is an interesting phenomenon, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so fast forward.
What's happened to your mom in this situation?
Yeah, so it was time. My dad was like, okay, I'm comfortable to know that, like, this could really be your potential husband. So, because he was like, if he's, if after we do our research, he's not, like, a good guy, then it's pointless to get your mom, because he didn't know what her reaction. We grew up in Missouri in a really racist town. Like, all of our neighbors would created so much fear in my mom. They would, as soon as, like, if we called a plumber and the guy was black, our neighbors would call, like, 2 or 3 neighbors, there's a black guy in front of your house.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was just all that, like, fear of, like, black people was just, so I didn't know if that was gonna have an effect on my mom's on her decision.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, it was time to tell my mom, and she was okay with it. I was like, hold on, you're not mad? She's like, I'm only mad that you didn't tell me first. I was like, hold on, that's it? And subhanAllah, she had similar reaction to my dad. And I was like, okay, my parents are not like, this is just amazing. And so I had both of my parents, like, I had so much support from them, subhanAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
When it came time to announce with the family, I kind of spoke earlier a little bit about it, but one of my closest uncles called screaming, like I had to move the phone from my ear. He was like, what are you doing? Like, the community's going to have so much to say about this, and our reputation, our family reputation is going to get ruined.
Classic.
And yeah, the classic. And I told my uncle, I was like, no, he's a good guy. He's not going to ruin the family reputation. He's going to, inshallah, bring so much, like, joy to the family. And he was not having it. And I think this was before my uncle got to meet him. SubhanAllah, one thing I want to share, because I don't want you guys to think my family was just, like, against it and no matter what. Like,
but it was shocking.
Got to know him. SubhanAllah, slowly, like, each uncle that got to meet him, like, they opened up more to the idea. They were like, oh, he is a, nice guy.
Right.
One of my uncles gave us a harder time, and I'll never forget, my husband was like, Salam alaikum, and my uncle ignored him. And my husband just thought my uncle didn't hear him. And he's like, oh, Salam alaikum. He got louder. And my uncle ignored him, and I'm like, oh, like, baby, I'm sorry to tell you, but he's not ignoring, he's ignoring you. And so my husband just went up to him, and he's like, oh, like, I wanted to give you salams. So I think even that uncle ended up having a change of heart, because I think he was embarrassed, like, wow, like, I'm here ignoring this guy, and he still was so adamant about giving his salam, like, his peace, like, subhanallah. So
yeah, the iman wakes us up. Like, you're like, this is Islam. He's saying salam. He has rights upon you to say wa alaikum assalam. And I don't want to respond because he's not Palestinian. And then I'm sure your uncle, it hit him. His heart was like, what am I doing? Because that's any conscious person is gonna go.
And another uncle was like, oh, he's probably a thug. When they met him, I'm like, you guys, like, it's a lot of
projections,
stereotypes. A lot of stereotypes, and he broke every stereotype. And another person from within the community was like, he's probably, at the time, remember the sniper killer? They were like, he's
Oh my
probably
God,
the
that's
brother of the
horrible.
sniper killer.
Astaghfirullah.
And I'm like, oh gosh. So, when I didn't get like really good reasons of why I shouldn't marry him, I was like, okay, these aren't valid. Like for me, I knew this was hard because I'm such a, I'm close to all my uncles. I was the type that would bring everyone, I'd be like on a Friday night, I would say, hey, everyone, let's meet up my parents. So I was that girl, and then I worked with my uncle. So to like go against them was a big deal at this point. Like my uncles couldn't believe it, and they actually told me that if you go on and marry this guy, we're gonna disown you.
Oh.
And they thought by saying that, it was just, that's it. Like I was gonna break it off, and I did think of that because it was scary. Like
Of course, it affects.
I don't want to lose my family.
Of course.
So I remember I was like, okay, I have to get really creative on how I'm gonna break up with Dawood, like how I'm just gonna break the news. So I was like, like the family just doesn't really like you, and they're saying this and this and this. And he was like, it's okay, like we have to be patient. And I was like, what? Like patient? Like they're really like, they're calling you all sorts of names. They don't like you at all, and they're gonna disown me. He was like, you have to be, like, you have
solid on the truth.
Yeah, and we have to fight the hate with kindness. And he really, subhanAllah, he didn't talk the talk. He really walked it in every way. During the engagement process, he would remind me, like he would send me like hadiths or like an ayah in the Quran, and it was just, for me, I was like, okay, I know he's the one. Because every time I tried, and I'll never forget another time where I was just like, this isn't worth it. He called me and he was like, oh, were you, did you go to Luff Elementary? And I was like, Courtney Elementary. And I was like, yeah, how do you know that? He was like, oh, did you have a boy haircut? And I was like, how the heck do you know I had a boy haircut? And it turned out we both went to the same kindergarten.
How cute.
Wow.
And then I moved to a different district, and like we didn't know each other again until high school. So it was so crazy how I at that moment I was like, okay, Allah wants us to be together.
Subhanallah.
And then like his dad and me share the same birthday, just so many things, like
The signs.
Allah, again, it was the signs, like Allah kept sending signs that were meant to be. And and then my grandma, who I'm super, Allah yarhamha, she passed away, but she accepted him from the second she met him.
Oh, that's the best
Yes,
approval right
that
there.
is the
Grandma,
best.
yeah.
And some of the uncles were like, oh, see, it's your fault. You're showing her approval, so that's why she's going. But she was like 100% all about it. She's like, as soon as I saw him, I felt at ease.
Raha, yeah.
The only thing she requested out of him was that he learn Arabic. And little did she know he was already learning Arabic. That was like one of his passions, to learn Arabic. So he was like, oh yeah, I'm on it.
No problem.
Yeah.
And 4 kids later, you're still facing some challenges from clients
Not
and
from
community.
family. Our family, I
Family's
think
over.
they like him more than me now. And I'm like, no, I exist. But they all adore him, and he adores them. Like he loves our family. And subhanAllah, I'm like, it's crazy how far something can go with just patience.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we forget, we just put that to the side. But no, if you put patience on the forefront of everything you do, Allah will make it easier for you. And truly he did. Like Allah was just amazing in this whole experience. So yeah, I tell any girl going through this challenge, I tell them, just be patient. Don't expect your family to accept him right away. And make sure he is a good guy. Like, just because he's another race doesn't mean you just even if he's Palestinian, like I would have done the same.
It's about the person, not about the ethnicity, nationality, or anything.
So I tell girls, like, you just have to make sure that, I tell them, do not run away from your family, because family, you can never replace your family, It's not worth it. I knew for me, I was kind of lucky though, because I had my parents' support. A lot of these girls don't have their support, but I'm like, just be patient. Be patient, and eventually, inshallah, they'll come
It
around.
means to be, Allah facilitates.
Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us in the Quran, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. If you have iman and trust and security in Allah and you're trying to do what's true and good and beautiful, be patient and have the salah, which is a connector, and Allah's with those who are patient. And you're absolutely right, Fatima. If I don't let things kind of pan out a bit, right, or unfold, I'm never going to know. I'm not going to see more or less signs, right? If we act impulsive or we decide things right away, then, like you said, without patience is actually the opportunity to get more data from Allah about the matter that you're worried about or you're concerned or anxious about, right? So that's such an important lesson. I think the other thing that's important to highlight here is your story is quite unique. Like, you were patient, you saw those, you're sharing a lot of these signs. Now, what about the sisters who are trying to do something similar, but they may not be seeing as many signs or it being as smooth as let's say it unfolded for you? What would be your response to that?
If you're being patient and doing everything that I had mentioned, to just make sure that you ask all the right questions to make sure he's a good guy, and if you're not seeing all those different signs, and I personally think it's just not meant to be. And a lot of times it's so hard for us to let go, but we have to trust that Allah, if this isn't good for me. No, if it's just community members, if it's like pure racism, like that's their reasoning, stay strong, but it's each individual is different and what they can handle.
Yeah, what they're willing to sacrifice.
At the end of the day, we need that community support. You can't do it alone. I've seen girls, just leave their whole family for a guy, and then it
doesn't work
out. And guess what? There's no family to go back to.
Exactly.
Everyone's just done.
Yeah.
So I tell girls, you have to be smart about it. You have to be respectful to your family. Your family is family no matter what. That's your blood.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's okay, their behavior towards racism, but you have to be patient. Racism usually comes from colonization, years and years of colonization and ignorance. And so you have to be that person. And with my instance, the ones who are against it, I would tell them no, but I'll never forget, he was leading prayer at a public, it was like at some hijab store, and my husband went to lead prayer, and there was a few Muslim women that were like, oh no, I can't pray behind him because he's a convert.
What?
Yeah, they were like, salat.
All the Sahaba were converts, people. Hello?
Exactly.
Hello? Are you listening?
So they're like, our prayer won't be valid, and I was just like, wow, and I could have just lashed out on them, but instead I sat there and educated them.
You have to take those opportunities, to teach.
Again, it's just really patience. You have to be patient. Don't expect everything. Nothing good comes easy. Nothing good comes easy. So just always keep that in mind. You have to work. And subhanAllah, my husband always tells me, I think because I worked so hard for you, he tells me, he's like, I appreciate you that much more. But I also feel the same because I had to, work so hard also for him. It wasn't easy. Poor guy thinks he had to work really hard because he did. He could have easily just been like, oh, I'm done with this family.
Right, I'm giving up now.
I don't need all these challenges.
I always feel like when people have those feelings about converts, like, guys, we choose to be Muslims.
Yes,
it's not like Karim, who were born in a Muslim family and was introduced to you since your first day.
But we still have to choose.
Of course.
You're Muslim by chance or choice, whether you're born or you convert.
But you have the exposure from the moment of first second of your life.
True.
And we didn't. And we dive in this word of unknown things.
I never liked the idea of hijab before I married my husband. And subhanAllah, he taught me so much about the hijab. I remember once he asked me, he's like, oh, is hijab something you're thinking about? And I was like, hijab? No way. Mm-hmm. And because I grew up, I remember my one of my Islamic school teachers, he had told me, like, if you don't wear hijab, that you're going to get hung, by your hair on the day of judgment, with fire. And I was just like, I'm going to go to hell.
Oh, geez.
And so I just never liked the idea of hijab because I was like, gosh, like, it's such a negative. I always had this negative, even though my dad, like, never, I would tell him, like, and he was like, no, that's wrong, don't. But, you hear it so much, like, from your Islamic school.
Negative stigma, yeah. So how did your husband, like, open your heart to that, which is fascinating?
I feel like the hijab is so, like, I remember once when I put it on for prayer, he's like, wow, you look so, like, he was, like, so intrigued by how it looked on, me wearing the hijab, and I was like, yeah, like, whatever, this is never gonna happen, and he was like, it's actually a liberating thing. Like, I don't know why you think so negative about it. It's like it liberates you from, like, the oppression of men, like, checking you out, and, like, not listening to, like, your mind and what you have to say. And subhanAllah, and I just started reading more about it, and I was like, you know what? Like, I actually like the idea of hijab more. But I didn't tell him that I was like, because we were engaged for 3 years, and right after we got married on Eid Day, I was like, you know what, I don't want to take it off today. And I remember we were on our way to the Eid's breakfast with our family, and he was like, oh, your hijab is still on, and I don't think he didn't want to get his hopes up, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to take it off. And I remember we were like, he was driving and he stopped the car in the middle of the street. And I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, Allahu Akbar. It was like such a crazy moment for us. And he's like, oh my God, let's go see your dad. He wanted to share it with my dad first because him and my dad thought I was just never going to wear the hijab because I was just like, no, I'm never going to wear it. And I just started loving it, and I was like, you know what? And subhanAllah, that day, I always get signs. Me and him, that night after, we celebrated with the family, we went to the movies, and some guy came up to me and he was like, you look like an angel. Like, so respectfully, so nice. And I was like, oh my God, like, I had a tear in my eye. I was like, subhanAllah, that was just... And I just felt like that night, I was just like, this is it.
Embraced it.
Because I'm like, okay, I'm just going to, like,
try it.
Today I want to, like, wear the hijab, but I was like, we'll kind of see. I wasn't, like, 100% solid. That night, I was like, that's it. And I never took it off.
You felt the hijab, right?
I did, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Right for you.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And I saw the other day a comment that someone told you probably don't know how to make Knafeh right because you're married to an African American.
Yeah, you think because I'm married to a black guy that I just don't know how to make it right. That somehow, like, the ingredient is gonna change. Like, me living with them, I'm like, just the ignorance and pure racism it's just. I don't know. I honestly, I don't get mad at those comments.
You feel pity for them.
I feel pity for them, and I feel bad because they have to have so much hate in themselves to think or say these kind of things, and I just make dua for them.
Especially to go out of your way to do it.
People, apologize and they feel bad, and I'm like, you guys, wallahi, I feel bad for them. Don't feel bad for me because, alhamdulillah, I'm blessed that I know better, and I don't let hate take over me, or I don't let, so, alhamdulillah. So, yeah.
God bless you, Sister Fatima. Thank you for, sharing your story. It was really inspiring and touching. And, one of the things I love about the work I do is, my iman, gets sweetened and reinforced just by hearing the stories of my brothers and sisters, really, because it's like Allah shows himself and manifests for so many people in different ways, right? And sometimes it's the majestic way, it's the hard way, like we were talking earlier about, a local member who just passed away, God, rest his soul and help his family. And then, we're listening to your story and everything in between, there's constant happenings, and I almost see like every person's life is almost like a firework. You know, 4th of July, it comes up, it booms, it's gorgeous, and then within seconds it fades out. And that's, you know, what Allah tells us. Everything's in a state of fading away except me. So, you know, we got to value our time. We've got to give our gift. We have to, you know, break through ignorance and darkness and racism and live with more truth and love and goodness and beauty. And inshallah, that's how you can also perhaps taste Jannah here too, right? Because
that's what Knafeh Queens is about. It's just bringing happiness, you know, and trying to connect with people. And I love catering mostly to like people who aren't like me, you know, people. I want to cater to people who like might not think the best things about Muslims, and people are like, really, why? Like, I would never want to, and I'm like, because you already know.
Has anyone ever told you, do you put bombs in your cupcakes or something ridiculous like that? Or not that bad?
I've just had people just say stuff like, you know, not about the Knafeh itself, but
about you,
just about me, like, you know, thinking that I don't speak English or that I'm oppressed by my husband. And I'm like, trust me, women are elevated in Islam. We have our rights, alhamdulillah. And I joke, I tell them, oh, my husband, because I remember this guy saying, does your husband make you walk behind him? And I'm like, no, he walks behind me. And so I just mess with I love to mess with people. So for me, humor, like winning racism with humor always works. Like, I've never had someone racist like leave like upset, or you know, they're always like, wow, like they want to learn more and they feel dumb, and I love that. I love, you know, changing people's mind and hearts through just being patient and kind, and you know,
that's the way to
corny with my jokes.
Yeah, subhanallah. Sister Knafeh, bloopers. Sister Fatima, tell us where people can find your business.
So you can order our Knafeh, our famous award-winning Knafeh, on knafehqueens.com, or you could even shoot us a DM on Instagram, Facebook. You can. We ship to all 50 states. We've also shipped out of the country.
MashaAllah.
To the UK and
MashaAllah.
know.
My sister-in-law, Karim's sister, she lives in Egypt, and she's like, oh yeah, Knafeh.
No.
Yeah, she knows.
Through Instagram.
No, I love it. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, just continues.
Ameen. Well, God bless you, your family, your business. My wife and I have had your Knafeh. We love it. So, inshallah, Allah blesses it, and we'll definitely keep you on our catering referral list.
Yay,
so,
thank you.
Thanks again for coming on. And can you do one more favor for me? Can you just say...
This is the Knafeh Queen, and you're listening to Coffee with Karim podcast.